Maya had always been different. Not in a bad way, just different. While her college friends could walk into any store and find clothes that fit perfectly, she had to search harder. While they got compliments on their appearance, she got comments about her pretty face or her bubbly personality. People always seemed to focus on everything except the thing that mattered most to her, her incredible talent. At 28, Maya was one of the most creative graphic designers you'd ever meet. Her laptop was filled with amazing artwork that could make your jaw drop, colorful logos that seemed to dance off the screen, marketing campaigns that could make you want to buy anything, website designs that looked like they belonged in a museum. She had graduated at the top of her class, won 3 major design awards in college, and had a portfolio that would make any company lucky to have her. But none of that seemed to matter when she walked into job interviews. Maya lived in a small apartment in the city, surrounded by her artwork and dreams. Every morning she would put on her best outfit, grab her leather portfolio bag, and head out to another interview. She always prepared thoroughly. She knew every detail about the company, practiced her presentation until it was perfect, and arrived 15 minutes early with a smile on her face. The first few rejections didn't bother her too much. Maybe they found someone with more experience. Maybe they needed someone who specialized in a different type of design. These things happen, she told herself. The right opportunity would come along. But as weeks turned into months, a pattern started to emerge that made her stomach feel heavy. She would walk into these sleek office buildings, past the glass walls and modern furniture, and notice how everyone looked: tall, thin, dressed in expensive clothes that seemed to fit them like they were made just for their bodies. The receptionists would look up at her with quick glances that she pretended not to notice. Sometimes she caught people whispering after she passed by. During interviews, something strange would happen. The hiring managers would start enthusiastic when they saw her work. Their eyes would light up as they flipped through her portfolio. They would nod and smile and ask technical questions that she answered perfectly. But then, somewhere in the middle of the conversation, their energy would shift. It was subtle, but Maya could feel it, like someone had turned down the volume on their excitement. "This is really impressive work," they would say, still looking at her designs. "You clearly have a lot of talent." Maya's heart would jump with hope. This was it. This was the moment they would offer her the job. But then came the but. "But we're looking for someone who really fits our company culture. But we need someone who can represent our brand in client meetings. But we think you might be happier somewhere else." The words were always polite, always professional. But Maya began to understand what they really meant. She wasn't the image they wanted for their company. Her body didn't match the picture they had in their heads of what a successful employee should look like. The hardest interview was at a trendy marketing agency downtown. Maya had dreamed of working there since college. Their campaigns were creative and bold, exactly the kind of work she wanted to do. She spent a week preparing, creating a special presentation just for them. The creative director, a woman who looked like she stepped out of a fashion magazine, barely looked at Maya's work. Instead, she kept glancing at Maya herself as if she was trying to solve a puzzle. The interview lasted only 20 minutes. "We'll be in touch," the woman said, but her tone made it clear that they wouldn't be. As Maya walked back to her car, she overheard 2 employees talking by the elevator. "Did you see the girl who just interviewed? I mean, her work was good, but can you imagine her at client presentations? We represent fashion brands and fitness companies. What would they think?" Maya's face burned with embarrassment. She sat in her car for 10 minutes before she could bring herself to drive home. The rejections started piling up like autumn leaves. 200 applications, 50 interviews, 0 job offers. Maya's savings account grew smaller each month while her doubts grew bigger. She started working small freelance jobs just to pay rent, designing flyers for local restaurants, creating business cards for friends of friends. The work paid the bills, but it didn't pay her dreams. Her family meant well, but they made things harder. Her mom would call every week asking about job interviews, then suggest that maybe Maya should try a new approach. Her sister, who had always been naturally slim and worked in the fashion industry, would send articles about dressing for success and making a good first impression. Everyone seemed to think they knew what Maya's problem was, but no one wanted to say it out loud. Even her closest friends started acting differently. When they went out together, Maya noticed how they would choose restaurants carefully as if they were worried about her ordering too much food. They would talk about their jobs and career successes, then quickly change the subject when Maya tried to share her own struggles. Maya began to feel invisible and too visible at the same time. Invisible because no one seemed to see her talents, her intelligence, her creativity. Too visible because everyone seemed to notice her body before anything else. She started avoiding mirrors and stopped buying new clothes. What was the point of dressing up for interviews that were going nowhere? She began eating meals alone in her apartment, scrolling through job postings on her laptop while wondering if she should just give up on her dreams entirely. The worst part wasn't the rejection itself. It was the slow realization that the world had decided her worth based on something that had nothing to do with her abilities. She was the same person who had won those design awards, who could create beautiful things that made people smile, who had more creative ideas in one day than most people had in a month, but none of that seemed to matter. Late at night, Maya would look at her artwork and wonder if she was crazy for thinking she could make it in this industry. Maybe everyone else was right. Maybe she should just accept that some dreams weren't meant for people like her. But deep down, in a place that the rejections couldn't reach, Maya knew she was meant for something bigger. She just had to figure out how to find it. Maya's alarm clock buzzed at 7 a.m., just like it had every morning for the past year. But instead of jumping up to get ready for another interview, she hit the snooze button and pulled her blanket over her head. What was the point? She had sent out 12 applications the day before and hadn't heard back from any of the companies she'd interviewed with last week. Her small apartment felt smaller each day. The walls seemed to close in around her as she spent more and more time inside. The artwork that once covered every surface now felt like reminders of dreams that might never come true. Her easel sat in the corner, covered with a sheet because looking at it made her chest feel tight. The freelance work that had once felt like a temporary solution was becoming her reality. Maya found herself designing birthday party invitations for neighbors and creating social media graphics for small local businesses. The work paid just enough to cover rent and groceries, but it felt like using a race car to deliver newspapers. She was capable of so much more, but no one seemed willing to give her the chance to prove it. Her daily routine became predictable and lonely. Wake up late, check emails for job responses that rarely came, work on small projects that didn't challenge her creativity, and spend hours scrolling through social media watching her former classmates celebrate promotions and new positions at companies Maya could only dream of working for. Lisa, her college roommate, had just become art director at a major advertising firm, the same firm that had rejected Maya without even looking at her portfolio. Maya stared at Lisa's celebration post for 10 minutes, feeling happy for her friend but devastated for herself. They had the same education, similar portfolios, and had even worked on projects together in school. The only difference was something Maya couldn't change about herself. The worst part was how people in her life started treating her differently. Her mom's weekly phone calls became uncomfortable conversations filled with suggestions that felt more like criticisms. "Maybe you should consider expanding your search to other cities," her mom would say. "Or perhaps look into teaching. Something more stable." Maya knew her family meant well, but every suggestion felt like they were telling her to give up on her real dreams. Her sister sent articles about alternative career paths and finding fulfillment in unexpected places. Even her dad, who had always been her biggest supporter, started asking if she had considered other options. Her friendships began to suffer too. When her college friends got together, they would talk about office politics, difficult clients, and promotion opportunities. Maya would sit quietly, having nothing to contribute to conversations about corporate life. She started declining invitations to meet up, making excuses about being busy with work when really she just felt embarrassed about her situation. The loneliness was the hardest part. Maya would go days without having a real conversation with anyone. She worked alone in her apartment, ate meals by herself, and spent evenings watching other people's lives unfold on social media. She felt disconnected from the world like she was watching life happen through a window instead of participating in it. Her confidence, which had once been her superpower, began to crumble like old paper. Maya started second-guessing every design decision, every email she sent, every conversation she had. The voice in her head that used to encourage her to take risks and try new things was replaced by doubt and fear. She began avoiding situations where she might run into people she knew. The grocery store became a strategic mission, in and out, as quickly as possible to avoid awkward conversations about her job search. She stopped going to her favorite coffee shop after overhearing 2 customers making comments about her appearance. Even places that had once felt safe now felt like potential sources of embarrassment. The rejection emails became a daily routine that made her stomach hurt. "Thank you for your interest, but we've decided to move forward with other candidates. While your portfolio is impressive, we don't think you're the right fit for our team. We've chosen someone whose background more closely aligns with our current needs." Maya started keeping a folder of rejection emails, though she wasn't sure why. Maybe she thought that if she collected enough of them, they would eventually spell out the truth that everyone seemed afraid to say directly. Maybe she was hoping to find a pattern that would help her figure out what she needed to change. But deep down, she knew what the pattern was, and it wasn't something she could fix with better interview clothes or a revised resume. Her savings account balance got smaller each month, creating a new kind of stress that kept her awake at night. Maya would lie in bed calculating how many months she could survive on her remaining money, wondering if she should move back in with her parents. The thought made her feel like a failure, like she was admitting defeat after everything she had worked for. Food became complicated. When she felt stressed about money, she would eat whatever was cheapest. When she felt sad about another rejection, she would order takeout as a way to comfort herself. When she felt anxious about the future, she would sometimes forget to eat entirely. Her relationship with food became tied up with all her other struggles, creating another layer of difficulty in an already challenging situation. Maya's dreams began to shift from career goals to simpler wishes. Instead of imagining herself presenting to important clients or seeing her designs on billboards, she found herself just hoping for a steady paycheck and co-workers who would treat her with basic respect. Her ambitions, which had once reached for the stars, were slowly shrinking to fit the box that the world seemed determined to put her in. Some days were darker than others. Maya would sit at her computer, staring at job postings, feeling like she was reading descriptions of opportunities that were never meant for people like her. She would draft cover letters that felt like begging, trying to convince strangers that she was worth taking a chance on despite what they might think when they saw her. The worst days were when she started believing what the world seemed to be telling her. Maybe she wasn't meant for success. Maybe she should lower her expectations and accept whatever opportunities came her way. Maybe everyone else could see something about her that she couldn't see about herself. But even on those dark days, somewhere deep inside, a small flame of hope refused to go out completely. Maya couldn't explain it, but something told her that her story wasn't over yet. She just had to find the strength to keep writing it. It was one of those gray Tuesday mornings when the world felt heavy and colorless. Maya sat in her usual corner of the small coffee shop downtown, the one place where she could work without feeling completely alone. Her laptop was open to a half-finished logo design for a local bakery, one of the few clients who still hired her for small projects. The payment would barely cover her phone bill, but it was work, and work meant she could still call herself a designer. The coffee shop was nearly empty except for a few regular customers. Maya liked it that way. Fewer people meant fewer chances for awkward encounters or uncomfortable stares. She had been coming here for months, always ordering the same thing. A medium coffee with extra cream and a blueberry muffin that served as both breakfast and lunch. Today felt different, though. Maya couldn't focus on her work. Her mind kept wandering to the stack of unpaid bills on her kitchen table and the email she had received yesterday from her landlord about next month's rent. Her savings account had exactly $347 left, and she had no idea how she was going to make it through another month. She was so lost in her worries that she almost didn't notice the older gentleman at the table next to her struggling with his tablet. He looked to be in his early 50s, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and graying hair that suggested he had probably been working longer than Maya had been alive. He was pressing the screen with increasing frustration, muttering under his breath about technology being too complicated. Maya watched him for a few minutes, debating whether to help. She had learned to keep to herself in public places, avoiding interactions that might lead to uncomfortable questions about what she did for work or why she spent so much time alone in coffee shops. But something about his gentle demeanor made her feel safe. "Excuse me," she said quietly. "Are you having trouble with your tablet? I might be able to help." The man looked up, surprised but grateful. "Oh, would you? I'm trying to update my organization's website, but I can't figure out how to change the pictures. My assistant usually handles this stuff, but she's out sick today." Maya smiled, her first genuine smile in weeks. "I work with websites all the time. Mind if I take a look?" She moved to his table, bringing her coffee with her. The man introduced himself as David, and he explained that he ran a small nonprofit organization that helped people find jobs after facing discrimination. Maya's heart skipped a beat at the word discrimination, but she focused on the technical problem at hand. As she helped David navigate the website builder, she couldn't help but notice what his organization did. The website was full of stories about people who had been overlooked or rejected by employers for various reasons. Their age, their background, their appearance, their disabilities. It was like reading her own story reflected in dozens of different faces. "This is really impressive work," Maya said, genuinely meaning it. "What you're doing here, helping people like this. It must be incredibly rewarding." David smiled warmly. "It is, though I wish we didn't need to exist at all. Unfortunately, there are still too many talented people out there who get judged on things that have nothing to do with their abilities." Maya felt a familiar tightness in her chest. She knew exactly what he meant. As they worked together to fix the website, David mentioned that their organization desperately needed help with their marketing materials. "Our current brochures look like they were made in 1995, he laughed. "I keep meaning to find someone to help us update everything, but good designers are expensive, and our budget is pretty tight." Without thinking, Maya said, "I'm actually a graphic designer. I could show you some of my work if you're interested." She immediately regretted offering. What if he was just being polite? What if he looked at her work and made an excuse to end the conversation? But David's eyes lit up with genuine interest. "Really? That would be wonderful. We could definitely use some fresh ideas." Maya hesitantly opened her laptop and turned it toward David. She watched his face carefully as he scrolled through her portfolio, preparing herself for the familiar shift in expression that usually came when people moved from being polite to being dismissive. But that shift never came. Instead, David's eyebrows raised in genuine surprise and admiration. "Maya, this is incredible work," he said, and something in his tone made her believe he really meant it. "These designs are exactly what we need. They're professional but warm, creative but accessible. How long have you been designing?" For the first time in months, Maya found herself talking proudly about her work instead of making excuses for it. She told David about her education, her awards, her passion for creating designs that made people feel something. She didn't mention the rejections or the struggles. She just talked about the work itself. David listened intently, asking thoughtful questions about her process and her inspiration. He wasn't just being polite. He was genuinely interested in her ideas and expertise. It had been so long since someone had asked her about her creative vision that Maya almost forgot how good it felt to have her work taken seriously. "I have to be honest with you," David said after they had been talking for nearly an hour. "Our organization doesn't have a big budget. We're mostly grant-funded, and money is always tight. But we desperately need someone with your skills, and I think what we're doing might be exactly the kind of meaningful work that someone like you would appreciate." Maya felt her heart racing. Was he offering her a job? After months of rejection, was someone actually interested in hiring her? "I can't offer you a lot of money," David continued, "but I can offer you something that might be even more valuable, a chance to use your talents for something that really matters, and a workplace where you'll be valued for who you are, not judged for what you look like." Maya stared at him, wondering if she had heard correctly. Had he really just acknowledged the thing that no one else would say out loud? Did he understand what she had been going through? "I've been doing this work for 15 years, David said gently, and I've learned to recognize talent when I see it. I've also learned to recognize when someone has been unfairly overlooked. You have incredible skills, Maya, and any company would be lucky to have you, but sometimes the world doesn't see what's right in front of them." Maya felt tears building in her eyes. It had been so long since someone had seen her worth, since someone had looked past her appearance to recognize her abilities. She didn't trust herself to speak without crying, so she just nodded. "Why don't you think about it?" David said, sensing her emotion. "Take a few days to consider whether this might be something you'd be interested in. We're not a big fancy agency, but we're doing important work and we could really use someone with your vision." As David packed up his tablet and prepared to leave, he handed Maya his business card. "Whatever you decide," he said, "I want you to know that meeting you today reminded me why I love what I do. There are good people in this world, Maya, and you're one of them." After he left, Maya sat alone in the coffee shop, staring at the business card and feeling something she hadn't felt in months: hope. For the first time since her job search had begun, someone had looked at her work and seen possibility instead of problems. Someone had offered her a chance instead of an excuse. Maybe, just maybe, her story was about to change. Maya stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror on Monday morning, trying to calm her nerves. Today was her first day working with David's organization, and she felt like a teenager getting ready for her first day of high school. She had spent the weekend thinking about his offer, weighing the modest salary against the chance to finally use her skills for something meaningful. The decision wasn't really difficult. After months of rejection and freelance work that barely paid the bills, David's offer felt like a lifeline. More than that, it felt like someone finally believed in her abilities. She had called him on Friday to accept, and the genuine happiness in his voice had made her smile for the first time in weeks. The organization's office was nothing like the sleek corporate buildings where Maya had interviewed before. It was located in a converted house in an older part of town, with creaky wooden floors and walls painted in warm, welcoming colors. There were plants everywhere, family photos on desks, and a kitchen area where someone had left homemade cookies with a note that said, "Help yourself, Anna." David greeted her at the door with a warm smile and a cup of coffee made exactly how she liked it. He remembered from their conversation at the coffee shop that she preferred extra cream. It was a small detail, but it made Maya feel noticed and cared for in a way she hadn't experienced in a professional setting before. "Welcome to our little corner of the world," David said as he showed her around. "It's not fancy, but it's home." The team was small but passionate. There was Anna, the office manager, who had made the cookies and who treated Maya like an old friend from the moment they met. There was Robert, a counselor who worked with clients to build their confidence and interview skills. And there was Janet, a former teacher who helped people write resumes and cover letters that highlighted their strengths. What struck Maya most was how everyone seemed genuinely happy to be there. People laughed easily, supported each other's ideas, and celebrated small victories together. It was the complete opposite of the competitive, image-focused environments she had encountered in her job interviews. David showed Maya to her desk, a sunny spot by the window with a view of a small garden. "This is yours," he said. "Make it feel like home." For the first time in her career, Maya had a real workspace that belonged to her. She spent the morning setting up her computer and organizing her supplies, feeling like she was finally where she was supposed to be. Her first project was redesigning the organization's brochure. The existing version was outdated and hard to read, with too much text crammed onto each page. Maya spent hours studying the organization's mission and values, talking to team members about what they wanted to communicate, and thinking about how to make the information more accessible and inspiring. When she presented her first draft to the team, Maya held her breath. She had poured her creativity and passion into the design, but old habits made her expect criticism or polite dismissal. Instead, Anna clapped her hands together and said, "This is exactly what we needed. It tells our story so much better than anything we've had before." David nodded approvingly. "You've captured something here that we've been trying to express for years." This doesn't just look professional, it feels hopeful. As weeks passed, Maya found herself growing more confident. Her designs were making a real difference in the organization's ability to reach people who needed help. The new brochures led to more inquiries from potential clients. The updated website attracted attention from other nonprofits who wanted to learn from their approach. Local businesses started reaching out to discuss partnerships. But the biggest change was in Maya herself. Working with people who valued her input and respected her expertise helped her remember why she had fallen in love with design in the first place. She wasn't just making things look pretty. She was helping to communicate messages that could change people's lives. One afternoon, David asked Maya to sit in on a meeting with a potential client. The woman, named Carol, was in her 50s and had been out of work for 8 months after being laid off from her accounting job. She was convinced that her age made her unemployable and had almost given up looking for work. Maya listened as Carol described her experience, the subtle rejections, the feeling of being invisible, the gradual loss of confidence. It was like hearing her own story told by someone else. Without thinking, Maya found herself speaking up. "I know exactly how you feel," she said. "I spent months being told I wasn't the right fit for companies, and I started believing there was something wrong with me. But the truth is the problem wasn't with us, it was with them. You have valuable skills and experience, and the right employer will see that." Carol looked at Maya with surprise and gratitude. "You really understand, don't you?" Maya nodded. "More than you know." That conversation sparked something in Maya. She started volunteering to speak at the organization's workshops, sharing her story with other job seekers who had faced discrimination. At first, she was nervous about being so open about her struggles, but she discovered that her honesty helped other people feel less alone. Her presentations were powerful because they were real. Maya didn't pretend that finding the right opportunity was easy or that discrimination didn't exist. Instead, she talked about the importance of finding places where your worth is recognized and building confidence from the inside out. "Your value doesn't depend on other people's ability to see it," she would tell workshop participants. "Some people will get it and some won't. Your job is to keep looking until you find the ones who do." Outside of work, Maya began taking better care of herself, not because she was trying to change her appearance, but because she finally felt like she was worth the effort. She started cooking healthy meals that she actually enjoyed, joined a community garden where she could work with her hands and meet new people, and began taking evening walks in her neighborhood. The change in her confidence was obvious to everyone around her. Her mom noticed it during their weekly phone calls, commenting that Maya sounded happier and more like herself than she had in months. Her sister, who had always been quick with advice about Maya's appearance, started asking for her opinion about career decisions and creative projects. Most importantly, Maya's relationship with her own reflection began to heal. She started looking in mirrors again, not to criticize what she saw, but to appreciate the person who had survived months of rejection and was now thriving in work that mattered. David often commented on the positive energy Maya brought to the office. "You've changed this place," he told her one day. "Your creativity and passion have inspired all of us to think bigger about what we can accomplish." Maya smiled, realizing that she had found something she hadn't even known she was looking for. Not just a job, but a purpose. Not just acceptance, but genuine appreciation for who she was and what she could contribute. For the first time in her adult life, Maya felt like she was exactly where she belonged, doing exactly what she was meant to do. The girl who had once felt invisible was finally being seen, and more importantly, she was learning to see herself clearly too. 2 years had passed since that gray Tuesday morning when Maya met David in the coffee shop, and her life looked completely different now. The small nonprofit organization had grown from helping a few dozen people each month to serving hundreds across the state. Maya's designs had played a huge part in that growth, but more than that, her story had become a beacon of hope for people who thought their dreams were impossible. Maya's desk by the window was now covered with thank you cards from people who had found jobs through the organization's programs. Each card represented someone who had been overlooked, undervalued, or dismissed by employers, but who had eventually found a place where their talents were recognized. Reading these messages never got old for Maya. They reminded her why her work mattered so much. The organization's success had caught the attention of larger companies who wanted to learn about creating more inclusive workplaces. Maya found herself being invited to speak at corporate events and diversity conferences, sharing her insights about how businesses could recognize talent in all its forms. At first, the irony wasn't lost on her. Some of the same companies that had rejected her applications were now paying her consulting fees to help them understand why they were missing out on great employees. Maya could have felt bitter about this twist of fate, but instead she chose to see it as an opportunity to create real change. During one particularly memorable consultation, Maya sat across a conference table from the creative director, who had dismissed her so coldly 3 years earlier. The woman didn't seem to remember their previous meeting, but Maya remembered every detail. This time, however, the conversation was completely different. "We're struggling to understand why we can't seem to find diverse talent," the creative director complained. "We post our jobs everywhere, but we keep getting the same types of applicants." Maya smiled patiently. "The talent is out there," she said. "The question is whether you're creating an environment where different types of people feel welcome and valued. Sometimes the problem isn't finding diverse candidates. It's recognizing them when they're sitting right in front of you." She spent the next hour walking the team through practical changes they could make to their hiring process, their job descriptions, and their company culture. By the end of the meeting, Maya had not only earned their respect, but had also secured a contract to help redesign their entire recruitment approach. As Maya drove home from that meeting, she thought about how much had changed. She was no longer the desperate job seeker hoping someone would give her a chance. She was now the expert that companies sought out for advice. The transformation still amazed her sometimes. Her personal life had flourished too. Maya had started dating Tom, a social worker she met at a community event. He was kind, funny, and had fallen for her confidence and passion long before he cared about anything else. Their relationship was built on mutual respect and shared values, and Maya finally understood what it felt like to be with someone who truly saw and appreciated her. Her family relationships had also healed. Her mom had stopped sending diet articles and started bragging to her friends about Maya's professional success. Her sister now called regularly asking for advice about her own career challenges, finally recognizing Maya's wisdom and strength. Even her dad, who had always supported her but worried about her struggles, now beamed with pride when he talked about her work. Maya's speaking engagements had evolved beyond corporate consulting. She was invited to universities, community colleges, and job training programs to share her story with students and career changers. These were her favorite events because the audiences reminded her of herself, full of hope and talent, but sometimes lacking the confidence to pursue their dreams. During one such event at her old art school, Maya stood in front of a lecture hall filled with young designers. She could see herself in their eager faces, especially the ones sitting toward the back who looked uncertain about their place in the industry. "I want to tell you something that no one told me when I was sitting where you are now," Maya began. "Your worth as a designer, as a professional, as a human being, is not determined by whether other people can see it right away. Some people will get it immediately, and some people never will. Your job is not to change yourself to fit their narrow vision. Your job is to find the people and places where your unique perspective is valued." She talked about the importance of persistence, but also about the importance of recognizing when a door isn't worth knocking on anymore. She shared practical advice about building portfolios, networking authentically, and finding work that aligned with their values. But most importantly, she talked about the power of believing in yourself even when the world seems to be telling you that you don't belong. "I spent months thinking that the problem was me," Maya told the students. "I thought I needed to change, something fundamental about myself to succeed. But the truth is, the right opportunities don't require you to be someone else. They require you to be exactly who you are, just better at it." After her presentation, dozens of students approached her with questions, stories, and gratitude. One young woman who reminded Maya of herself at that age stayed until the end. "Thank you for being honest about how hard it can be," the student said. Everyone else makes it sound like success is automatic if you're talented enough. It helps to know that someone like you struggled too and still made it. Maya smiled, remembering how desperately she had needed to hear similar words when she was starting out. You're going to face challenges, she told the student. Some of them will be unfair, and some of them will hurt. But if you remember that, your value doesn't depend on other people's ability to see it. You'll get through anything. David often joked that Maya had become the face of their organization, but Maya knew that her success was built on the foundation he had provided. He had been the first person to see her potential when she couldn't see it herself, and his belief in her had given her the courage to rebuild her confidence from the ground up. The organization now employed 12 people full-time and had helped over 2,000 individuals find meaningful employment. They had expanded their services to include mentorship programs, skills training, and even a small business incubator for entrepreneurs who had been overlooked by traditional funding sources. Maya's role had evolved too. She was now the director of community outreach, overseeing a team of counselors and coordinators who shared her passion for helping people recognize their own worth. She still designed marketing materials and managed the organization's visual identity, but her bigger contribution was in strategy and vision. As Maya reflected on her journey, she realized that meeting David that day in the coffee shop had been the beginning of something much bigger than just finding a job. It had been the start of finding her purpose, her voice, and her place in the world. She thought about all the people who had told her she wasn't the right fit, all the companies that had passed her over, all the moments when she had wondered if she should just give up on her dreams. Now she understood that those rejections hadn't been about her worth. They had been about finding her way to work that truly mattered. Maya kept a photo on her desk from her college graduation, back when the world had seemed full of unlimited possibilities. Looking at it now, she realized that those possibilities hadn't disappeared during her months of struggle. They had just taken a different shape than she had originally imagined. Her story had become proof that sometimes the most beautiful destinations are reached by paths we never planned to take. And every day, through her work and her example, Maya helped other people discover that their stories were far from over too.